Hi, I'm Dave Kahle. Welcome to this Christian Business Insights podcast show where my goal is to provide you with practical, actionable ideas to help you create businesses and careers of excellence and at the same time multiply your influence for the kingdom. I have been a Christian in business for over 30 years, and I have personally and contractually consulted with over 500 different sales organizations. So in these podcasts, I combine the lessons that I have learned with an out-of-the-box experience and perspective on Christianity that you will find challenging. And we put that together to provide you with practical insights and ideas that you can use to live better and lead better. Hi, this is Dave. Welcome to today's version of a podcast show. Got a special guest today, Mark Gerson. And we're going to learn a lot from Mark and what he's involved in. So, Mark, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself. Who are you, and how did you get here?
Well, Dave, I'm your guest, and I'm so excited to be here. So, I'm Mark Gerson. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started several companies, Gerson Lammer Group, GLG, 3i Members, as well as two charitable organizations, United Hatzalah of Israel, which is the country's crowdsourced system of volunteer first response, and African Mission Healthcare, where we partner with Christian missionary doctors at mission hospitals all throughout Africa to provide clinical care for the poor and everything that's needed to provide that. And I have a book coming out in June called God Was Right, How Modern Social Science Proves the Torah is True.
Wow. So we got a lot to talk about here, Mark. So first of all, tell me, what do you do right now? I mean, what are you active in? How do you make a living right now?
So I'm an entrepreneur. I've started companies, and I'm very active in 3i Members right now, which is a community of very successful private investors to share investment opportunities, do collective diligence, and be in community with each other. And I'm also very active in the two charities I co-founded and chair, and the third charity that I co-chair, which is Eagle's Wings, which is the parachurch ministry of Christian Zionist pastors. So very active philanthropically, very active commercially, and I've spent the last 3.5 years writing God Was Right.
Yeah, good. Well, so 3.5 years writing it, I can appreciate that. I'm an author, so I understand what you're saying. So tell us what is, what's the premise behind God Was Right? I guess the title kind of talks about it, but expand on that.
So the premise is that the Bible is a guidebook, and we know that because Moses tells us in Deuteronomy, this book, this Torah is for your benefit. So the Bible should not be in the religion section of bookstores. It should be in the self-help section of bookstores. So for thousands of years, people have wondered, is the Bible true? Is it just a good and interesting book, or is it not true? And now, with the benefit of 21st century social science, we can answer that question definitively, because the hundreds or even thousands of questions that the biblical author asked have also been asked by contemporary social science. And all of the answers provided in the Torah, the 5 books of Moses from Genesis to Deuteronomy, all the answers on subjects ranging from diversity to clothing to anti-fragility to routine to work and rest, so many different subjects, all the questions and all the answers have in the 21st century been completely validated by modern social science, proving that the Bible is true and that it is the ultimate and quintessential guidebook that everyone should follow for all of our decisions, all of our choices, all of our challenges, and all of our opportunities. The Bible is the most practical and best book ever written. If someone wants a self-help book that can lead them through the day, through the year, and through their life, it's the Bible.
Can you give us an example of that? I mean, how does what would be an example of that?
Sure. Well, let's give an example from business.
Okay.
So the only person in the Bible who's called to success is Joseph, and he's called to success only twice. Now, Joseph, of course, rises to be the number 2 man in Egypt and all the world, but that's not when he's called to success. Joseph is called to success when he's a slave in Potiphar's home and when he's a prisoner in Pharaoh's jail. So he's a success in these two different experiences. So what does that teach us? It teaches us that success is measured not by what job you have, but by how well you do in the job that you do have. But the story doesn't end there, because what we also see in the text was how well Joseph did in both jobs. He gets promotions in both places. He goes in as a lowly Hebrew slave to Potiphar's home, and he emerges as the head slave. He goes in as a lowly prisoner and he emerges as a head prisoner. He becomes such a success that he gets promotions.
Hmm.
Okay, so what happened? What happened is explained by modern social science. It's the term known as job crafting. So what is job crafting? The notion of job crafting is that when you have a job, no matter what it is, if you define the job not by the tasks that you perform, but by the mission that you're enacting, when you achieve purpose and meaning to your job, whatever it is, you
Hmm.
will become successful. So all the 21st century social science on job crafting shows that, for instance, a janitor who doesn't say, I'm here to clean the room, but a janitor who instead says, I'm here to make the patient healthy, is much more likely to get a promotion. And that's the truth all throughout different professions and different occupations, is that job crafting, the same job crafting that Joseph did, the same discipline and mentality that enabled Joseph to become a success as a slave and as a prisoner, is what will make anyone a success in whatever job they have. So the lesson from the Torah is, whatever job you have, no matter how lowly you think it is, there's no such thing as a lowly job, because every job has a function that has a purpose that can be considered sacred. But no matter what job you have, if you invest meaning in that job, if you give enthusiasm to that job, the odds are that you will succeed in that job, get a promotion, and become more successful financially.
Interesting. So Joseph, if you don't mind me going off a little tangent here, so
Sure.
one of my books is called The Good Book on Business, and we talk about what the Bible had to say about business. And interesting thing about Joseph, the issue of spiritual gifts. Joseph is the first example of the application, the manifestation of spiritual gifts. When the jailer says, can you interpret this dream? And he says, no, I can't, but God can. So here's the
That's right.
interpretation. And that's God in him. I mean, Joseph said, I can't. No, but God can. So that's a spiritual gift. And Joseph is the very first example of the manifestation in the Bible. So,
Yeah.
well, so do you have to be a Christian to learn that? This issue about success and so on. You have to be a Christian?
Well, I'm Jewish. So,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
so, so no,
Okay.
of course not. But Dave, I'm so glad you asked the question, because the Bible is the ultimate guidebook for everybody. So the guidance offered in the Bible can be applied by everybody. So, for instance, in the story of how Joseph job crafted and how Joseph became a success as
Hmm.
a slave and then as a prisoner,
Hmm.
that can be applied to people of all faiths. It's faith
Hmm.
agnostic. It's a
Hmm.
simple human truth that we as Jews and Christians are so deeply fortunate to have as our Bible. But the Bible is, and we just talked about Joseph and job crafting.
Hmm.
The Bible offers many other lessons about how to become financially successful, even wealthy. They're all in my book, God Was Right. And in addition, the Bible teaches us how to have a happy marriage. It tells us
Hmm.
how many times to date before you decide to commit. It teaches us what kind of clothing we should wear in the morning and why. It teaches us
Hmm.
everything needed to guide our decisions in the day, from the most seemingly prosaic. And I say seemingly because you could argue nothing's prosaic and everything's important. And I have a
Hmm.
chapter on that.
Okay.
But the Bible's there it's a guidebook for truly everybody.
Hmm. Interesting. So, excellence and influence are the sort of the calling cards of this show. And so, talk about excellence. So, does the Bible show you or teach you how to be excellent in business? Like you gave us one example. Or is there?
Yeah.
Can you generalize any more from that, or is
Yeah.
there something? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the job crafting one's a good example. There are so many others. Let's just go to Abraham. So, what does Abraham do when he is in the famous story when he's taking Isaac up the mountain? So,
Hmm.
what Abraham does is he does all of the important actions in that sequence when he's taking Isaac up the mountain to sacrifice him. And of course, he doesn't have to sacrifice him, thankfully, but
Hmm.
he does all the actions himself. And this is a characteristic of Abraham. When Abraham circumcises his son, he does it himself. When Abraham and his wife prepare food for their guests, who turn out to be angels, he does it himself. So what do we see there? We see that when you invest yourself with something, you will do it better. That, of course, all successful businessmen will delegate some things, but they shouldn't delegate everything, and they shouldn't delegate too much. So we see that Abraham delegates certain things, but very limited to what he delegates. When something's truly important, he does it himself. So what does modern social science tell us about this? What does modern social science tell us about effort? What would modern social science suggest to Abraham, who could have had lots of other people perform the tasks that he does for himself? Well, we have in 2011 the IKEA effect, which showed that people value things more to the extent that they build them themselves. So IKEA tells you, here are the raw materials, go home and build it. People pay a premium for that over getting things pre-made from the store. You'd think it'd be the opposite. You'd think people would say, well, my labor is valued at X. If I don't have to spend my labor, then I'll pay more for it. People do the opposite because we value things more to the extent we put in the effort. There's another study in 2013 which confirmed this, which said that students who paid for their own college earn higher grades than students whose parents paid for their college.
Yeah.
So if we want to be successful, one lesson from the Bible is do things yourself. Another lesson from the Bible, and this is from Deuteronomy, it says that if you give generously to the poor, you will be blessed in all of your undertakings. That's very explicit. It's saying if you give generously to the poor, if you give charity generously and enthusiastically, you will become wealthy. Blessed in all your undertakings means you will become wealthy. And so why is that? Well, modern social science has completely validated that people who are charitable do much better financially than people who are not. And in God Was Right, I go through the completely secular logic of why the Bible's right, why people who give will do better financially, will become wealthier than people who don't give as much as they should. But the data is very clear that the Bible's right, that people who give are blessed in their undertakings. And the logic of social science and human experience shows exactly why. So for instance, I'm the chair or co-chair of 3 charities. And of course, all 3 do lots of fundraising. And only infrequently do people give gifts, and not major gifts, because they found us on the web. People don't go to the web to find charities to give to. They give in community. So when you give in a community, that means that you and the other people in community have something that you find important or even sacred in common. So when it comes to doing business, if you need a plumber or you need an accountant or you need an investment advisor or you need a business partner, you're highly likely to seek someone who you trust. And the person who you trust is likely to be in your charitable community. So it makes total sense from a secular perspective that those who give generously to the poor will be blessed in all their undertakings. And so it's just a great example of how giving generously and enthusiastically to charity, the Bible tells us it'll make us wealthy. The social science says, you know what, it does. And the logic suggests how.
Yeah, well, what a great word. Thank you for that. I found something about Abraham that it's one just small verse in Genesis that really was a major eye-opener for me. And the verses where Lot's been captured, and
Sure.
Abraham's going to go after him. And so the Bible said, and Abraham gathered 318 trained men
Right.
who had been born in his household and went after Lot. And I thought, wait a minute, we got this idea that a household is a family. How could Abraham have 318 trained men in his family when he had no children? I mean, at that time, he's just married to Sarah, had no children.
Right.
And when you think about it, 318 trained men in his household who've been born in his household, how many untrained men? How many brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, Well, his household was an economic entity, and his household probably numbered in the thousands. I suspect, well, it's difficult to substantiate this, but I suspect that Abraham could very well have been the most wealthy person in the world at that point.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was the wealthiest person in the world, which makes it all the more interesting that he's doing all these tasks by himself.
It does, yeah.
Because the wealthy guy doesn't have to do anything for himself, but Abraham does a lot for himself.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. What a great lesson. Well, so there are some listeners who are thinking, hey, wait a minute. The Bible's difficult to interpret. There are all these different interpretations. How would you guide someone who really wasn't all that conversant with the Bible into learning the lessons from the first 5 books? How would you guide them?
What a fantastic question. So first, if anyone thinks the Bible is complicated, someone's fooling them. The Bible is not complicated.
Okay.
The Bible is the greatest guidebook. And just like secular guidebooks that populate bestseller lists, it's really accessible. Its lessons are right there for all of us. And one of the reasons why I wrote God Was Right is to show how the Bible is not only the most interesting book ever written, it's also the most useful book ever written, and it's as accessible as any book ever written. You just have to know how to read it, and it's not that hard. And so in God Was Right, I have several dozen chapters on subjects ranging from diversity to routine to anti-fragility, just going through how the lessons from the Bible are right there for our understanding and our taking. The Bible itself says in Deuteronomy, it is not beyond the sea, it is within your capability to understand. So the Bible itself anticipated that certain people would say it's in the sky. It said it's not in the heavens and it's not beyond the sea. So the Bible
Okay.
itself, Moses in Deuteronomy says some people someday are going to think this is really hard to understand, that it's beyond the sea, that it's in the
Mhm.
heavens. It's not. It's
Mhm.
in your grasp.
So if again, if I'm somebody who doesn't have a great deal of biblical awareness, any suggestions as to what Bible do I buy and how do I get, and what are you talking about the Torah? I mean, take somebody from zero up to a point where they can make use of this book.
Yeah. So what Bible to buy? I mean, I use the Art Scroll, but the differences in translation are they're there, but they're not that important for someone coming to the Bible for the first time. So pick up any Bible.
Okay.
And I would say pick up any Bible, and certainly God Was Right really extracts and brings home a lot of the most practical lessons and meanings. But there's so many. There are several really good podcasts too, which do the same. I'd recommend my friend Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg from the Boca Raton Synagogue, his podcast, where it's called Parsha. That's a Torah portion. Parsha Perspectives for Today. Just
Mhm.
the enduring and eternal and totally practical and timely relevance of everything in the Bible. Like Dave, to use your example of Abraham and his 318 men. So what did those men have? I have a chapter where that passage is the center, and that's a chapter on synergy.
Mhm.
Because the question is, how did 318 men beat five armies? Which is what happens in the story, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Almost inconceivable.
Yeah.
So in that short story of Abraham and his 318 men, it shows they were motivated, they were coordinated, they had continuity, and several other pretty similar characteristics which enable a small force to beat five much larger forces. So I was looking at the question of how did the San Antonio Spurs dominate the NBA for so many years? They did.
Mhm.
They won like five titles in 15 or 16 years or so.
Mhm.
And Kobe Bryant had the answer. He said what he was jealous about with regards to the Spurs. And it was not that they had a better point guard than he ever had, which is true.
Mhm.
He said, I'm jealous of their continuity. He
Mhm.
said they had Popovich, they had Duncan, they had Ginobili, they had Parker. He said they had continuity. They had the same guys for 15 years. That's
Mhm.
what Abraham had. So when it
Mhm.
says these 318 men were from his household, as you said, Dave, it doesn't mean they were his literal children. It means they grew up together. They
Mhm.
had continuity. They knew each
Mhm.
other. So what it's teaching us is that a small force with continuity can beat much larger forces without continuity. So how
Mhm.
did the Spurs dominate? Because they had continuity. Tom
Mhm.
Brady actually said the same thing. So it's just a fundamental fact of human groups, which again the
Mhm.
Bible teaches us how
Mhm.
important continuity is. That a small group that knows each other, that has continuity, and most importantly, that trusts each other, which groups that have continuity typically do, is
Mhm.
going to outperform.
Interesting. So, diversity. Let's talk about what the Bible has to say about diversity. I mean, that's a big topic these days.
Yeah.
And so, is there some insight from the Torah on diversity?
Oh, that's actually the longest chapter in the book, I think. Yes, yes. So the first story of diversity is in the Tower of Babel. So where everyone is speaking the same language and using the same words. In other
Okay.
words, there's no viewpoint diversity.
Okay.
So God doesn't like it. So he creates new languages and separates the people, thus creating diversity. And then we have another kind of diversity in the Bible, which we don't talk nearly enough about in modern society, which is skill set diversity. So in
Hmm.
the construction of the tabernacle, God specifically acknowledges the woodcutters and the weavers and the carpenters,
Hmm. Hmm.
showing that God loves and respects each occupation. And he wants everyone who occupies an occupation to know that he's performing a sacred purpose. And that in
Hmm.
order for an organization to become excellent, it needs to have people who are excellent at a whole variety of tasks, and we have to respect each one.
Hmm.
But when it comes to the kind of diversity that we talk about today, it's very interesting. The political system of the Bible is based on tribes. So we have the 12
Tribes,
tribes.
tribes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 12 tribes.
Hmm.
Yet when it comes to the Sanhedrin, which is the Torah's both political and judicial body, there is no mention of tribal representation on the Sanhedrin. The author of the Bible clearly doesn't care if the Sanhedrin is all Danites or no Danites. He doesn't say, well, the Simeonites got a really bad blessing from Jacob and therefore we need more of them. He doesn't care. What the Bible specifies for membership in the Sanhedrin is a variety of characteristics which people from any tribe can have. You have to be wise-hearted. You have to have children. You have to be uncorruptible. It doesn't matter what tribe people are from. So the Bible loves diversity in a couple senses. The Bible counsels for viewpoint diversity, and I go through the modern social science as to how genuine viewpoint diversity, which has nothing to do with racial and ethnic and gender diversity, but genuine viewpoint diversity improves decision making. And skill set diversity is crucial for any organization that wants to become excellent. So the appreciation of people with all kinds of skills is very important. But the kinds of diversity that we hear about so much today that's embodied in the term DEI, that's not a biblical idea.
Okay, so diversity in terms of carry or the inclusion in Sanhedrin, basically by your character. Did I get that right?
Exactly. Your character and your character and your skills. But basically the skills flow into character. So I think you're exactly right. It's
Yeah.
your character, it's your incorruptibility, your wisdom, your knowledge of families. You have to have children. So but it had nothing to do with what tribe you're from.
Yeah, interesting. I can see application. Of course, one of the things I do is work with sales managers and leaders and so on in hiring salespeople. And one of my premises is you hire people for the quality of their character, not their experience. And look, and we can drill more deeply into that. But the issue of character is something that's very close to my heart. I've written about it quite extensively, and that is, I think it's something that needs to be dusted off and made visible again, because I think as a society we've gotten away from character as a goal, as a criteria for who we elect and who we appoint. Let's look at their character. I'm not sure we're doing that these days.
Well, I love your application to sales leaders and salespeople as well. I mean, I think in job interviews or discussions about who to hire, it should be the most important question, like what's the character of the man or woman?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mark, I have, there's sort of a premise behind what I do, and that is business is ministry. And BIM, business is ministry. And much of what I do is intended to help people see that and apply that. And that means taking on principles and practices and building character and so on and so forth. I just wonder, from your perspective, can you respond to that? I mean, how does that fit with your perspective here?
I love the premise. I love the term. I love everything about it. I mean, because what the Bible teaches us is where does holiness reside? Holiness resides in what we do all day, every day. So there's one example in the Bible in the book of Numbers of the Nazir, and the Nazir is the guy who decides that he wants to detach from society.
Okay.
So he agrees to abstain from wine. He agrees to grow his hair out, and a few other things that indicate a detachment from society. When he comes back in, the priest has to make on his behalf a sin offering.
Okay.
Teaching us that sometimes people do have to detach, but very rarely, and it's not a good thing. But true holiness is to be found in what we do all day, every day. There are all kinds of biblical laws that govern simple commercial transactions.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, you can't remain with the wages of a laborer overnight. You have to pay him that day.
Mm-hmm.
So no 90-day payment cycles for your laborer, no one-day payment cycle for your laborer.
Mm-hmm.
So I love your concept, and I think that people should think of business as a ministry for those reasons, but also because there's another great example in the Bible in Deuteronomy when Moses is blessing the tribes, and he blesses Zebulun and Issachar together. Zebulun is the international businessman tribe.
Okay.
He's by the seashore, so he's doing global commerce.
Hmm.
He gets the blessing before Issachar, Zebulun and Issachar.
Okay.
So Issachar is the student, and Zebulun's a businessman. So the businessman, the international businessman, gets a blessing before the student. Now they go together because you can't finance the scholarly activities without the success of the businessman. You need successful businessmen to finance everything else.
Hmm.
The Bible recognizes it, but it gives this great blessing to Zebulun, the international businessman. So, Dave, your idea of business as a ministry, it's right out of Deuteronomy.
Well, that's reassuring to hear. Well, so how does one get your book, or how does one get in touch with you if or if you want them to?
Yeah,
Give us some specifics there.
thank you. So anyone can email me at mark@godwasright.com. And the book's available, of course, on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and it's all linked to from godwasright.com.
Okay, so that's the website, guywasright.com.
Yep.
And I'm sure when it's not published yet, it's going to be published soon. Is that correct?
June 3rd.
June 3rd. Okay, so I think this show will probably reach publication around then. So that's great. Anything else, Mark, that you'd like us to know, or anything else you want to share with us?
No, what a terrific conversation, Dave. And I love your idea of business as ministry. And I think all business people should see what they do and how they do it as sacred activities. And that's what the
Yeah,
Bible would counsel. And that's the message that you're bringing to everyone who listens to you and reads you. So thank you.
yeah. I go back to at the beginning of the Good Book on Business. I talk about God setting a precedent, and He created Adam and gave Adam the charge to care for the garden and work it. That's so
And work
Adam
it.
has a lifetime purpose.
That's
There it
right.
is. And then this is what's instructive. He gives him a very specific task within that, and that is name the animals.
That's right.
And God says, I'll bring them to you and you name them. So the very first task is a precedent setting, because that's how God works with mankind ever since. God gives us a task and works with us in the completion of that task. And we see it over and over
I
again
love
in
that.
every Bible story. But it began in the very first moments of creation, when God gave Adam his first job, named the animals, and He said, I'll bring them to you, and you name them, we'll work together.
Exactly.
And so as work, developed and became more sophisticated, businesses then were created, and business. I like to say to people, if you want to get closer to God, start a business.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And God made carpenters good carpenters and plumbers good plumbers and motorcycle repairmen good motorcycle repairmen. And if that is one's job and one's calling, someone should know it's a sacred occupation. They're doing a sacred thing. They're doing a
exactly.
godly thing. They're partnering with God to improve the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love our conversation, Mark. I love your premise, and I'm gonna buy the book
Well, thank you.
when it comes out. So good for you. I think
Thank you so much, Dave.
I think we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much for your conversation and the insight that you bring to us. And I think that's it. We're done. Bye
Well,
bye.
thank you so much.